Here's what you can look forward to on this episode of The Nice Guys on Business.
The other big way that we lose, as David mentioned, is in the economy. But I'll mention it's also affecting the idea of a meritocracy. America is based on the idea that we can decide who our winners and losers are based on our own merit, our own hard work, our own individualism. But instead, here comes BlackRock, here comes Vanguard, State Street, and the government, the biggest players in the world, and they are picking who are winners and losers. It's deeply un-American, and it hurts businesses, it hurts families, and it hurts this nation and our legacy.
So let me ask you, do you believe in UFOs, astral projections, mental telepathy, ESP, clairvoyance, spirit photography, telekinetic movement, full trance mediums, the Loch Ness Monster, and the Nice Guys on Business? Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys on Business is produced by Turnkey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
All right, Nice Guy community, not your run-of-the-mill topic for the Nice Guys on Business to discuss, but nonetheless, a very important topic that affects each of us probably every day. Now, today on the Nice Guys, let's dive into the world of ESG, environmental, social, and governance. You're among friends if you don't know what that is. So today, David Prescott and Michael Ashley will guide us into the world of ESG and discuss their book, Creative Destruction, How ESG Mandates Are Destroying Capitalism, Costing You Money, and Wrecking America. Those are pretty strong claims, and let's figure it out. Let's dive in. Gentlemen, welcome to the Nice Guys on Business podcast.
Hey, Doug, thanks for having us.
Yeah, pleasure to have you here. I want to start with, because this is a topic, this is, again, we've 1,570 some odd episodes later. This is not even a topic I've ever approached. So who wants to take a 101? I think I told you this pre-record. Give me a third grade definition of what ESG is, and then we'll talk about good, bad, or the ugly of it.
Go ahead, Michael.
Sure. Well, the best way to think about it in my mind is to think about a corollary or a comparison, which would be the Chinese social credit system. And so if your listeners are not aware of that, in China right now, everyone is graded and they have a social credit score. So if you jaywalk, if you litter, if God forbid you protest the government, you can expect your social credit score to go down. Just like we have a credit score in America that could prevent you from getting a loan. Now you can imagine that this is for your entire life and it locks you out of society. And so that is going on in China right now. You can't get a car, you can't rent a home, you can't travel. Those are things that happen when they restrict you based on your social credit score in China. Well, this is coming to the West. In fact, it's already here in the form of ESG, which stands for environmental, social, and governance. It's typically used to rate different companies, whether or not you should invest with them, but it's also being used in the stick approach as well, carrot and the stick approach. Right. In the stick approach, it's like this. If you are a company that does something that very powerful interests, including the government and big business, does not want to happen, let's say you're having too much of a carbon footprint, you can expect to get a bad ESG score. And this can prevent you from getting access to financing. It could even prevent you from having a bank account. And maybe even more draconian things can happen to your business. Again, being surveilled and having your freedoms taken away from your company and also from your person in America.
All right, so David, let me throw this to you for a second, or maybe Michael, if you want to answer this, that'd be fine as well. Just trying to give David a fair shake at this too. It sounds like it's Big Brother watching, and not only watching, they're keeping score.
That's absolutely true, Doug. As Michael said, when we look at Big Brother keeping score, being in the environmental consulting and remediation business in throughout the central part of the United States for over 30 years, we're trying to do everything we can to make sure that soil and groundwater and air are being protected. And when we get into the conversations that and the mass hysteria that climate change is the greatest crisis facing humanity right now, and that being the driver to drive environmental, social governance changes. As Michael said, this score, the ESG score, is how firms are being graded. And when you look at the three criteria, the criteria for environmental, that examines how a company performs as a steward of nature. It includes factors like energy use, waste, pollution, and natural resource conservation.
Mhm.
So that E of ESG is looking at these items and how a company is protecting natural resources and nature and different things like that. On the social criteria, it looks at how a company manages relationships with employees, suppliers, customers, and the communities where it operates. This includes issues like diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI. It looks at human rights and labor practices, and it also looks at what social causes does the company donate its time and money to. And then finally, on the governance, this deals with a company's leadership, executive pay, audits, internal controls, shareholder rights, and what the makeup of that board governance is.
Wow.
And there's prime examples that when you have companies that are heavily aligned with ESG and they plant board members, let's say they plant them on a Fortune 500 oil and gas firm, and those board members hate hydrocarbons because they're aligned 100% with climate change, how the hell does that company operate efficiently as a entity when the board is against what they do to their very fabric? So these ESG criteria are undermining the very principles of what capitalism and meritocracy are.
All right, all right. And there was a lot to unpack there, and we're going to come back to a number of those things. And thank you for being, Michael. Thank you for absolutely for sharing the third grade definition. Then David, thank you for going into a lot of the details of that, because that really it gave me a lot. It gave me a lot of fuel to the fire that I'm just about to stoke here. And I'm sure that you guys get, I mean, this is what you guys do for a living. So this is, well, I know, Michael, we will explain your capacity here, and David, we'll get into that too. But it seems like between ESG, there could be conflicts from one area to the other when it comes to a single organization. Something that happens in environmental could be conflicting directly with what's going on in governance, which could be conflicting directly what's going on the other side of things too. Is that reality? Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, and I want to speak to that because that speaks to the hollowness of this idea. Essentially, what we're doing with ESG or the Chinese social credit system is that we're trying to mandate goodness. We are suggesting that the government and these big businesses know what is ethically correct and that they can get you to do it, right? So let's take what you just said a moment ago. You would think, based on the climate change agenda, that Elon Musk's Tesla company would have a high ESG score. It does not. In fact, Microsoft has a much higher score. And the simple reason is it's about politics. It's about selective uses of ethics, right? And because Elon Musk has been very active politically, going as far back as the whole beginning of COVID, his company has a poor score, even though you would think that electric vehicles would give you a very high ESG score. So it's internally inconsistent. And it's basically a ruse to consolidate more power.
Amazing. I want to ask this because I'm sure that there was other than a dystopian outcome that has potentially been occurring as a result of this or the origin of this. What was the original intention? Was it to do well by doing good? I mean, is that what they were thinking that was going to happen? You know, I love our government, but at the same time, I hate our government because I keep thinking, God, how many ways could we get bureaucracy involved in fucking up what we have going on in these United States? Sorry for my emotion on that. It's just like, isn't that the reality of take this thing that could potentially be good and really screw it up really good?
Well, David and I have never heard that kind of language before, but we appreciate your enthusiasm. And yes, that's exactly what's going on. And so at the origins of this, it goes back not just the World Economic Forum that is pushing it right now, but it goes back to the United Nations. It goes back several decades. It goes back to a paper called Who Cares Wins. And the idea is that you can mandate these various causes and you can supposedly do good in the world. But the thing is, you can't. Not the way that they're doing it, right? Because they're suggesting that they know what is the appropriate approach. David mentioned environmentalism. The same thing could be true when it comes to governance, who you put on a board or whatever. But what we're saying is, contrary to the entire idea behind this, is that businesses should just make money. Go back to making money. When it comes to social causes, the environmentalism, we're not suggesting that those aren't bad things to do. Go for them, but just keep them out of business, keep them out of the world of business and allow people to make a living.
Sounds like what you're saying, again, I'm going to really boil it down to a few words here, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong. Let free enterprise determine who is profitable and who's sustainable and who can make it in this world, as opposed to an outside influence us into being better with the environment, better all around. Is that fair?
Yeah, exactly.
Doug, I've got a really strong point on that. Exactly.
Yeah, go.
So as a privately held business, the business that I have right now that I've run for 27 years, we did a large scale project for a nationwide publicly traded firm. The publicly traded firm called us at the completion of the project and started asking us about our ESG score. Again, privately held firm. And this is one of our major clients calling us. And we are not regulated by the SEC on any of the ESG scores like a lot of publicly traded firms are. This firm asked me, they say, hey, can you tell us what exactly you're doing to help with Scope 3 emissions? Scope 3 being part of the ESG process on environmental. Are you letting your folks work from home? Well, we do sometimes, but we need our teams in at the offices to produce. Have you converted to electric vehicles? Again, we're in the Permian Basin. We're in far West Texas doing the work that we do. Very challenging to use electric vehicles. One, they're cost prohibitive, and two, we just don't have the access. Then they ask, what are the social causes that you are involved in? Well, we're a privately held company. If we get a distribution, at the end of the year, I'm gonna support every Little League baseball team and all the things that we do, but I'm not going to be told from one of my clients to get their work what I'm going to donate my money to. And then finally, they say, what is the makeup of your board? My response was, do you think that if I've been in business for 27 years, we've been successful all 27 years we've been in business, that I know how to pick the team to win the Super Bowl? Or do I need you guys telling me how to pick my team to work for you? And then they say, well, don't you think climate change is the greatest catastrophe facing the human race right now? I personally think climate change, there might be something to it, but I think climate change has occurred periodically throughout the fossil record and in time. I think the biggest problem is probably 8.8 friggin' billion people all doing the same thing every day. But at the end of the conversation, they said, if you don't give us and follow these metrics, you will not be considered a preferential client to work with us.
Wow.
And I said, well, wow. And they said, well, that's just how it is, because we have to show effort from our providers to help our ESG score, so we will be looked at favorably at Wall Street. And so you're like, what the hell is this?
It sounded like what happened was they said shit trickles downhill, David, and you've got to climb on board with this, and you're even in this tell our community what your business is again. What do you do?
We're professional environmental services. So we are the geologists, the scientists, the groundwater guys, the engineers that are going out and helping companies when they have a failure or a catastrophic failure, old refineries, old DOD sites, pipelines, anywhere that hydrocarbons or any other chemical has either impacted soil or groundwater. We're the guys in a giant swath of the United States that are driving the remediation, ultimately the cleanup and the rehabilitation of that property to be used again.
So what was more important to them was what your ESG score was, rather than the impact and the validity and the way that you do your job, the efficiency and effectiveness of how you do your job. That wasn't even on. I didn't hear that in any of the questions.
And Doug, that was it. And they said, can you in fact convert your drilling rigs, our drilling rigs, to install monitor wells to clean up the aquifers? Can you convert those over to electric? You can use electric rigs in oil and gas drilling, but not in the drilling that we do. And I said that technology does not even exist.
Yeah.
And if it did, it would be 4 times the amount of the units that I have now. Next question to them: will your clients pay for that? No, they will not pay for that, but you should do it because it's the right thing to do.
Wow.
Insanity.
Do they put, and again, I know this isn't a part of necessarily our storyline, but I'm really curious. Do they put everybody through the same scrutiny, from the person that cleans their bathrooms in the evenings at their office building to the person that cleans up their fuel at night when they need remediation?
You would think they would, but I don't believe that's the case. I think they go for the contractors that they think that they can force to adopt these rules. One great question, though, I asked them, what are you doing? You're asking us to do this as a subcontractor. What are you doing to meet your ESG goals? Well, we bought 300,000 acres worth of timber in Arkansas, and we're going to use that as a carbon sump, naturally occurring. So you had the wherewithal. You didn't do any of these things that you're forcing your subcontractors to do. You just went and bought a bunch of land to sell the carbon credits.
They wrote a check. That's the only thing that they knew how to do, was write a check. They wanted to offset the other shit that they're doing that's poor in their industry, and they didn't want to deal with the reality of, come on, is this realistic? This sounds like this is probably, I mean, this is in your backyard. So this happened to you specifically, but it sounds like these conversations are probably happening every day with organizations that have an ESG number that is relevant, important, or critical to them in hitting, so they can get the things that they want as a result. Is that happening?
Absolutely, it's happening. Very, very just recently at our book launch. One of our associates that was at the book launch responded to us, and he said, "Hey, I've got a client who was trying to buy a private jet for their business use.
Right.
The bank that they were going through to get the funding for the private jet said, you already have too much of a carbon footprint. We are not going," even though they had the wherewithal, even though they had the financial security to service the debt of the loan for the jet, they were told no, because it was going to create too much of a carbon footprint.
Mm.
We're seeing it across all levels, not just publicly traded firms. We had a small operator, oil and gas operator in the Permian Basin, that had a private equity fund that was funding his operation. They were profitable. They were making all the metrics that needed to be met. Private equity firm calls, says, don't spend another damn dollar on hydrocarbons. The operator, third generation oil and gas guy, goes, how in the hell am I not supposed to spend any money on hydrocarbons? That's what we do. We drill in the Permian Basin for oil and gas. We buy acreage. We install wells. We produce hydrocarbons. You can't. Private equity firm to this individual says, don't spend another damn dollar on hydrocarbons. What are we supposed to do? We don't know what you're supposed to do, but we're not going to allow you to spend another dime on hydrocarbons. He says, why? The private equity firm says, the guys that are loaning us the money are telling us that.
Yep.
And all that does is increase the price of gasoline, diesel, and refined chemical products, any of those products. And do you think that our enemies, our sworn enemies, China, Russia, India, not India is not a sworn enemy, but companies that are competing against us globally are under the same yoke? No, not even close.
Michael, you want to chime in? I know you're eager to add on.
Well, I just want to speak to the entire hypocrisy of the same thing. You have the so-called climate czar, John Kerry, and you have his minions that are meeting for the COP, whatever number they're on, conference. Not to mention the other groups where the masters of the universe get together in Davos. Is it realistic that those people are not being told that they can't have private jets and fly out there? All those people are using the same technology, using the same gas and oil that they're saying that the businesses that David mentioned in the U.S. can't use. Well, they can do whatever they want with impunity, right? And it shows the absolute hypocrisy. These people are meeting once a year or more, actually quite more than once a year, to get together to talk about the climate problem when they're using the same technology that is, right, according to them, accelerating the problem. It's just hollow the whole way through. And you have to ask the question, who benefits from this?
Okay, so I want to ask two questions. Each one of you, both of you can handle them, I'm sure. But who does this impact? That's number one. How does this impact the consumer? Us normal people that are down here, below these people making these rules. How does that impact us? And what effect does it have on us in the long run? Like, is it higher prices at the supermarket? Is it less choices because we don't have choice because there's nobody that fits that makes the score? So who's it impacting, and what is the impact that it's having?
Go ahead, David.
The impact. So we spoke about hydrocarbons. We've talked about firms that ESG scores are trickling down as a supplier. We have not talked about agriculture. And so to answer your question, Doug, we're already the U.S. consumer is already feeling experiencing a lot of headwind when they go to the grocery store. We know that is a huge piece and was reflected in the recent election. If we continue to move down the road that climate change is the greatest catastrophe facing humans, and we continue to go, fossil fuel free, and we move everything to renewables, do we realize that one of the largest users of natural gas is the production of fertilizer? Fertilizer for crops is made from natural gas to create the nitrogen and different components of ammonia to be applied as fertilizer. If we take hydrocarbons, natural gas, out of agriculture, we could see a 60 to 80% decline in grain crops in the United States. What is that going to do? If we're looking at the entire shelf at the giant grocery store in our local community and just knock 60% of those varieties out, what is the price going to do in a supply demand curve?
So
this shit's going to go out the roof,
so
right?
It sounds like is ESG a driver of inflation?
Absolutely. It's also a killer of national security. If we can't produce coal-fired power plants in the United States or other avenues of energy production, what's it going to do in the AI space where we need so much energy right now to drive AI? Why is China right now bringing 250 kilowatt coal-fired power plants on average on per week? We can't even get one coal-fired power plant permitted in this country. And it's all under this guise of climate change. And so our enemies are just laughing at us as they move forward with all of these abundant forms of energy, and we're starving ourselves of the energy we need to run this country.
If I could add to that,
add to it, please.
The big loser is the American people. That's ultimately, and the world. And I'll give you an example based on what David's talking about. If we accept for a moment that climate change is real and it's man-made and that we're causing it through carbon, even if you were to shut down all of the energy production in the US, it's still occurring through China and India. And because we live in a giant fishbowl, the environment, according to them, is still going to get worse if you pursue these policies because they're not being applied to other countries. Mm-hmm. The other big way that we lose, as David mentioned, is in the economy. But I'll mention it's also affecting the idea of a meritocracy. America is based on the idea that we can decide who our winners and losers are based on our own merit, our own hard work, our own individualism. But instead, here comes BlackRock, here comes Vanguard, State Street, and the government, the biggest players in the world, and they are picking who are winners and losers. It's deeply un-American, and it hurts businesses, it hurts families, and it hurts this nation and our legacy.
That's a lot in there. There is definitely a lot in there. All right. I want to remind my community, the book is called Creative Destruction, How ESG Mandates Are Destroying Capitalism, Costing You Money, and Wrecking America. A lot of claims right there in the title, but I think it would be a valuable book for you to pick up. We're going to put a link in the show notes for that. I want to take a right turn here before we wrap up, guys, because I want to explain to those in our community the relationship between you, David, and you, Michael, because I think it's an essential component in how this book actually hit the shelves. So, who wants to take a crack at the relationship?
So, Doug, that's a great question. So, being a professional geologist and being in this space, I had another project that I was working on, and we were introduced by a mutual friend. Michael and I worked on this project for 26 months. We never met each other in person until the actual book launch a couple of weeks ago. So Michael and I were working on this other project. I asked Michael, I said, what do you do besides this? And he said he helps write books, and he's an author. I said, hey, I have this idea on this deal called ESG, and I didn't think Michael would have any clue about it. Michael had a lot of knowledge on ESG. And so as we talked about laying the project out, what is the architecture of this project going to look like? How are we going to build this project out? It became very clear very quickly. We're both fathers of Michael's children are a little younger than mine, but we're both fathers. We're both very passionate about what we leave for them. What is the status of the United States, and as we all should be. And then we were also led. We were led because the further we got into the project and we started talking to subject matter experts, we were hearing from the military, we were hearing from financial advisors, we were hearing from people in industry, hydrocarbons again, agriculture. Everyone we spoke to had a very, very clear and defined problem with ESG. But when we ask other folks that didn't know anything about ESG, 98% of the people have no clue what it is, let alone the ramifications of what is happening. So when we wrote the book, Michael is absolutely a genius, because I would have written a technical manual that people would have thrown away on the 10th page and gone, I don't want to listen to any more of this scientific jargon bullshit. So Michael created this story where we have about 13 or 14 pages of a fictitious story. And then we introduce a young lady named Daniel that's working on a school project. And then she uses a program similar to any of the AI programs, but it's called Chat ESG. Chat ESG gives the answers based on 220 exhaustive footnotes and reference points. So when you're reading this book, Doug, or whoever's reading this book, they'll go, hey, I can have this conversation with my kids, because we know all of our kids are being brainwashed with all the stuff they're seeing on TV and the education system right now. So at the end of the day, Michael and I's goal was, let's have a conversation. And Doug, right here is exactly what we wanted. If you read this book and you go, I had no idea that shit was going on, then boom, we solved at least the first issue. And that's having a conversation and being aware that this is occurring, because 98% of the individuals in the world right now have no idea, and let's even just say in the Western world, what ESG is. And when we have a large group and we're talking to them, how many people here know what ESG is? Maybe 30% will raise their hand, but really, what is ESG? Maybe one person will bring us something that has merit. So that is what has occurred. And we were both led, once the finished product was done, we were picked up very quickly, to have the book published. And then I think I was on day one or day two, Michael, we hit Amazon bestseller. I think we've hit Amazon bestseller in 6 categories right now. Nice. And some of those categories are just phenomenal. And, it's the tale, not he who tells it. It's the story. It's just bringing clarity to an issue in a very, very cloudy world. And let's just start with our 6 neighbors that live around us. And let's just have a conversation. And does this make sense? And is this going to produce, is this going to further hamper our position as a world leader, further hamper our economic condition as citizens of the United States? Or are we going to be able to have dialogue to start turning the ship?
Well, the book is very well received on Amazon, 4.9 stars out of 5. So you're doing something right. Other than obviously just bringing a great topic to the stage, people are receiving it real well. I'd love you to just add a moment or two, if you would, Michael, to what David just said, just about the relationship between you guys.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that David is way too kind with his compliments, and I really learned so much from him. This is not my area of expertise, and I learned a tremendous amount from David as we're building this book together. But the major thing I want to say is, all along, I think David said it first, I feel like we've been guided by divine providence. As you mentioned, we both have 2 boys. And we're deeply connected to our communities and our faith. And all along, it feels like God has been on our side to create this, and not to make it too spiritual or anything like that. It's just the idea that sometimes you might be on the right side of history, even if everyone else, the powerful voices in this country and the world, will say otherwise. I think that what is showing is that there's a mass awakening amongst the public, that they've been deceived in so many different ways by so many powerful interests, and that we don't have to go along with their lives anymore, that we can wake up. And we purposely wrote this book for business owners and other professionals because it affects us first. Mm-hmm. And if we can get them to wake up and to say no, we want you to realize that you have far more power than you realize, and that we can turn this around.
Michael Ashley, David Prescott, really great subject matter. I never discussed, never thought about it, never anything about it. And you've opened my eyes, and I'm excited to be able to read a copy of the book. I'm going to get a copy of it now that we've had this conversation, take a little deeper dive into what it is and how it's affecting us each and every day. Just in some of the background that I was doing before we got to this interview today, I was just amazed at the different sides of the coin on this subject. So very much appreciate your perspective. I definitely take the perspective that you guys take as well. F the score. Look, let's let free enterprise reign true and reign heaviest, and we will all come out on the winning side. So thank you for sharing. I'll give the final word to both of you guys. David, you say what, and then I want to head over to you, Michael, for the final word. So what didn't I ask you, David, or what should I know more about this subject before we wrap up?
I think that, I love how you use the word community, your community. One thing I would like to say to your community, are you looking for a far right book, or are you looking for a far left book? This book's neither one. This one, if it was, one being Democrats, 10 being Republicans on the red, I think we're maybe a 5-5, 5-6. You have to be a little bit more capitalistic to have the conversation, but it is not that type of a book. It is a book that presents the facts, again, exhaustive research, countless subject matter experts in all aspects of our society. And I think it's just not because we wrote it, but from divine providence, again, for Michael's discussion. Gosh, just take a look at it. If you don't like it, chunk it, throw it in the trash. But I think you're going to love it. And our forward by a gentleman named Jason Herrick is absolutely outstanding. If you just buy it just to read the forward, I think your money's well spent.
All right, Michael, final word to you.
Yeah, I'll say this. I think the last 4 years especially have been very difficult for businesses and for families, for this nation and for the world. And it felt like we were living in this under this dark cloud. But I believe that the next decades to come are going to be even better than the ones that came before. And I think that we should start to view these challenges that we're facing, whether it's ESG or something else, as fuel to make us stronger. Our message at the end of the day is empowerment, and we believe that we can completely turn the situation around. It begins with awareness through books like this, and it also begins with your listeners and other people taking action and saying, no, this is not what we want. This is not what's right for our country or our children, and we can turn this around together.
Awesome. Well, guys, I appreciate you sharing your message. And Nice Guy community, never underestimate the power of nice or the power that you have in your hands to make changes in this world. Special thanks to David Prescott and Michael Ashley, both co-authors of Creative Destruction, How ESG Mandates Are Destroying Capitalism, Costing You Money, and Wrecking America. We'll make sure we put a link in the show notes to their website and over to Amazon as well. Thanks, guys, for being here. And Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
For the Nice Guys on Business, I'm Steve O'Brien. Fill up your week with the Nice Guys. 5 episodes a week. Isn't that like some kind of a war crime? Why don't you just waterboard these poor people?